Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to our second webinar regarding our 2023 Getty report. I'm Anna Frazzetto, the Chief Revenue Officer for Airswift. And I thought before we get started, let me tell you what the Getty report is. The Global Energy Talent Index report is an important resource for anyone working in or interested in the energy industry. The report provides valuable statistics and information and trends that hiring managers can use to inform their recruitment and talent development strategies internally or externally. So let's take a look at some of the comparative analysis around the oil and gas sector versus renewables. I'm really excited today to be joined by Jaden Wallace, our president of Asia Pac. Hi, Jaden.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for having me today, and hi to everyone tuning in.
Fantastic. So, Jaden, let's not waste any time. Let's just jump right in. I figured a good place for us to start talking about is salary trends. This is a question we often get asked. How do salaries in the renewables and oil and gas sector compare?
Yeah, no, good question. Good place to start. So traditionally we have seen oil and gas salaries at higher levels than renewables, and certainly with the current boom in oil and gas projects that we're seeing, we're seeing this trend continue today. But we're also seeing a boom in renewable and new energy projects due to the investment in the move towards net carbon zero. So we're also sort of seeing salaries rise in this sector. If we look at some of the stats from Getty and start with the renewables side, we saw that 47% of respondents received a pay rise in 2022, with a third of those over 5%. So quite a hefty increase for a large population there. We also saw on the oil and gas side that 44% received a pay rise, and 66% their expected salaries to sort of rise again in the following year. A really small percentage, under 5% on both sides, expected salary decreases. So, we don't expect this rising salary trend to finish anytime soon. We see large populations globally, moving into that middle class where they have much higher energy usage. We see global supply issues. We see energy security issues, and all of which are leading to increasing energy prices. We're also seeing the climate crisis accelerate, the development of some of these clean energy sources as well. So the flow-on effect here is that this much higher investment in energy projects is causing, a real tightening in the talent market. These energy projects, they need technical expertise and people. So what we're seeing is that real squeeze in that available talent. And what companies are having to do to secure this talent is offer higher salaries to attract and retain. And we certainly don't see this abating. Oil and gas is tracking higher, and with pay and benefits ranked as the biggest driver of job satisfaction, we're actually seeing a movement of some workers back from renewables. So they had originally transitioned across from the oil and gas sector. So now we're seeing some come back from renewables to the oil and gas sector, which could have a negative impact on the energy transition. So with that oil and gas boom expected to continue well into the 2030s, as we see it at the moment, that clean energy sector will really need to ensure that they can remain competitive. And just as a side note, we're also seeing increasing demands for technical personnel across many STEM sectors. So it's not just energy prices and the energy market growth that's pushing these salaries high. It's also other sectors coming for these technical personnel that are highly qualified to move into these other sectors.
Right. So, Janie, you bring up a couple of interesting points. The oil and gas sector is currently offering, higher salaries because they're trying to attract the talent from renewables. So potentially it could cause a little bit of a stall or hindering the energy transition. But we know that this is not going to be sustainable, as the future is the energy transformation. So I think it's a normal reaction for oil and gas to try to pull all the stops, right, to attract the best talent out there, especially since you're talking about the talent shortage. But right now, we're in a market that is driven by the employees, and high salaries is a big attraction for now. But I think it's like with everything in life, the pendulum is going to swing and equalize. You also touched on another point in regards to technical needs and talent out there. And we're seeing similar patterns in the technology sectors also, right? That the salaries are being driven up. And as we see the transformation in energy, there's going to be more and more competitiveness as far as trying to attract talent. So let's talk about global mobility, right? How mobile is the workforce in both sectors?
Yeah, the short answer here is that they're both historically fairly mobile, and they've generally needed to be where the projects, these projects are geographically globally spread. And typically how these projects work in these sectors, I mean, there's different life cycles, and people can work in different locations as they roll through those life cycles. So that concept, that aspect, combined with the lack of sort of higher end technical expertise in some of these geographical locations, means that we have always needed a degree of global mobility to fill positions in this sector. In saying that, certainly what we saw from Getty is that the number of people willing to relocate has decreased from last year. So oil and gas workers are probably a little bit more experienced in this area, and we can see that in the stats from Getty. So, on the renewables side, we saw that 56% of employers are offering cross-regional job transfers to get their projects up and running. And 78% of respondents would consider relocating to another region for work. It's a bit higher on the oil and gas side. So 81% of workers there were open to moving abroad, but that's down from 89% last year. So, we can see the impact that the COVID pandemic has had on global mobility, in addition to rising supply chain costs that we've sort of been experiencing over the last 12 months or so. So, some people have discovered a greater work-life balance, and they don't want to travel again. They enjoy working from home or whatever it might be. And those relocation costs have sort of also gone up considerably. So this is meaning employers are offering less of these deals than they perhaps have done in the past. I think what we're seeing though is with investment on the up, in both parts of the market, we expect that global mobility will continue to increase again, due to the nature of these projects and the talent shortage that we're sort of currently experiencing. So, if we want to achieve our energy transition goals, our net carbon zero goals, those global mobility opportunities and packages are going to need to improve. So, people are willing generally to relocate for two main reasons. The number one reason is career progression. And I mean, I've experienced that myself, sort of moving around the world and, moving into different roles, but also the salary package needs to be there as well. And with family issues, sort of the number one reason that people won't move, then employers need to get this balance right. So I would say the oil and gas sector seems to have the edge here at the moment. We do quite often see these overseas opportunities come up with a salary premium in that sector. And again, oil and gas workers have traditionally been more mobile, and this willingness to travel may see a further talent drain from that renewable sector as these projects gear back up. And again, it can attract people from including the renewable sector back into the oil and gas sector. So I think, with both sectors struggling with that talent shortage there at the moment, there really does need to be a willingness on the employer's side to look at supporting families when relocating employees. And this could really help reduce that resistance to relocation that we're seeing a bit of in the market at the moment.
Right, Jade. And I think, you hit on the pandemic, and the pandemic has permanently shifted the mindset of mobility. Also, you touch on the fact of, looking at the whole family. So you're not just hiring an employee to go overseas. You need to be concerned and get creative. Get creative as an employer as to how do you attract the whole family to be able to make this move and this shift, especially since we're in a world now that working from home is very satisfying because it gives you that work-life balance. So I think this is going to be a challenge, not just for oil and gas and renewables, but across the globe when it comes to talent. Now, I think an area of interest, kind of changing the conversation and going down the path of ESG and the energy transition. How are both sectors addressing ESG concerns and transitioning to cleaner energy?
Yeah, I mean, this is a key areas for employers to address, when it comes to attracting talent in today's marketplace, that's for sure. So again, if we pull back to some stats from Getty, on the renewables side, 61% believe that their company is doing enough to enable that energy transition. And 51% said their opinions and values have an impact on company policy. And that's the highest of any of our sectors that we measured in the Getty report. On the other side of the coin, oil and gas, 21% that their employers are not doing enough. So it's quite a high number. And 48% said their firm has, reduced those or made an effort to reduce fossil fuel emissions. But 45% there said their opinions and values are not listened to, which is quite high. So I think there's a few things to unpack here. When it comes to ESG, by their nature, companies focused on renewables, they have a greater overall ESG message, and certainly that E part in particular. They're able to put that use to attract talent, and certainly in the past few years, we've seen this with traditional energy workers looking for that move from fossil fuels, oil and gas, into that more innovative area of renewables. And like I just alluded to, as per Getty, they're also listening to their employees more, which tells us they're potentially more innovative. It allows for greater job satisfaction and a more dynamic and exciting workplace, and that's attracting people in. On the other side of the coin, traditional oil and gas companies, they also have a number of areas that they've worked hard to improve on. But it's obvious they need to listen to their employees more, but they also need to start talking about it a bit more. I think some oil and gas companies have been a bit afraid to stick their heads up to a degree, so they don't talk on it so much. But there has been a big push in recent years, in DEI, for example. There's been a real push to ensure more women are working in STEM roles in these organisations, driving for equal representation at board and management levels, a lot of discussion and effort to close the gender pay gap. There's a long way to go, but there's a lot of effort going into those parts of the ESG. And also a lot of these oil and gas companies, they are investing heavily in renewables and new energy. They're upskilling their current employees, but it's really not that well publicised. It's not spoken about too much. And the reality is that with their balance sheets, a lot of these major energy companies of today, they will be the energy companies of tomorrow as well. So, they really could use this to ensure that they can attract and retain talent a bit more than they're doing today. So, both sides of the coin, ESG, really important. And even so more important as new generations of workers are entering that workforce. And what we're seeing with like the younger people coming through, they have a real desire to have a positive impact and be listened to and be heard, and feel like they're making a change and a difference. So it's something that everyone needs to pay close attention to.
Right. And, I'll tell you, I think ESG is the game changer, right? Because especially if salaries are not going to be the only thing that's going to attract talent. As you mentioned, there's a tremendous amount of focus on ESG programs. So I know in the Getty report, we have some other stats where we share that people would choose one company versus another company based on the ESG programs that they have internal. So it's definitely the future. And I think it's going to be the game changer in attracting talent. I couldn't agree more. Let's move to attracting and retaining talent, since we're kind of on that subject right now. How do both sectors attract and retain talent? What do you think that we can do differently outside of ESG?
Yeah, this is a really important area considering the talent shortage that we see across many sectors at the moment. And I'll bring up some key stats again here from Getty. So on the renewables side, 31% of respondents said that they had been approached about a position in another company, but not just once, but over 6 times over the course of the year. 68% of those working in renewables organisations are satisfied in their current role, but interestingly, over half said they would consider a move to oil and gas. And so with the boom that we are seeing, a switch of our workers is a real possibility and could have an impact on that energy transition. On the oil and gas side, 80% have been tapped up for another role in the past year. I mean, that's huge. 85% are considering a switch to another role. And 49% of respondents there were considering a move to the renewable sector. So we are really seeing a movement of opportunities being put in front of these people, but also a willingness to move. So, and it's not just between oil and gas and renewables. There's a whole bunch of other sectors that are also coming for that energy talent. They're highly trained technical people. They're able to transition easily to other sectors, areas like technology, infrastructure, logistics, and the like. So, it's super important for the employers out there to be concentrating, on that branding and company culture and attracting and retaining that talent, those ESG areas that we've just sort of been touching on. They really need to think about leveraging employee benefits, flexible working, the work from home, the DEI initiatives that we've been talking about as well, and sort of bringing all those together to try and, have a much more appealing work environment. A couple of other areas, a really important area, we touched on it slightly in global mobility, but, is the training and development side. People want to know how they're going to advance through organisations, and they want to know how they're going to get there and how they're going to get remunerated through that advancement as well. So it's good to have these plans laid out. And of course, definitely really important is that these companies, they ensure that they're staying on top of the pay and benefits aspect of what they're offering and making sure that's in step with the market.
All right. And benefits, Jaden, this was another topic that was highlighted during the pandemic, how critical it was when we got out of the pandemic, where organizations were competing on a benefit perspective, even more so than just the salary aspect. Unfortunately, we're kind of running out of time. I did want to squeeze in some time for some questions, but I wanted to kind of wrap up a little bit as far as what we've talked so far. Key findings comparing both oil and gas and renewables, higher salaries in oil and gas, that's luring talent away from renewables, could be a risk for the future of energy transformation transition. Both sectors are grappling with the challenge of talent attraction and retention, and ESG is going to be a priority focus for everyone. And this really kind of goes beyond just the sectors that we're talking about. And I think this is going to create a lot of work for hiring managers in trying to figure out how do you come up with competitive salaries and the full package, not only to the individuals, but they're also looking at what are you as a company doing to contribute back into the community. Jaden, I wanted to ask you a question, and this came in earlier, and I thought it would be good for us to segue into this piece here. How can companies in both sectors maintain competitive salaries and benefits in the face of inflation and other economic challenges?
Yeah, it's a very relevant question. I don't think there's any real perfect answer there because everyone's sort of facing the same issues. But, companies in both sectors that we're looking at here, they need to think creatively. That they'll be concentrating on optimizing their operational efficiency. They'll be continuous improvement technology, but they should also be looking at sort of alternative compensation structures. So what we do see sometimes in the market is performance linked bonuses. We're seeing stock options. The benefit side, a lot of those softer non-monetary benefits that we've already spoken about, flexible working hours, work from home, family life is very important these days. Comprehensive health packages is really important. We see a lot of comments around desire for better offerings there. And things like, additional vacation days, birthday days off, small things like that can actually have a really big impact. So, and then there's also a lot of the wellbeing initiatives that we see that are being offered in these organisations as well. So, mental health is something that affects more and more people, and being able to deal with and provide support in areas like that is also equally important. So, trying to use a combination of all of these things to really improve your EVP. Is going to help you attract and retain talent in today's market.
Well, Jaden, you shared so much valuable information, and I think there's a lot for organizations to really kind of think about how they approach the talent pool, because the talent pool is getting smaller and smaller, and the positions out there requiring the talent is growing, and therefore you wind up with the classic supply demand types of challenges. I think we might have room for just one more question, and it has to do with what steps can the renewable sector take to effectively onboard the influx talent, considering a move from oil and gas. So a little bit kind of looking at it from a different angle, coming from renewables to oil and gas, or vice versa.
Yeah, we've sort of, this is interesting because we are sort of seeing, we do see sort of people move backwards and forwards between the two sectors. And we have had a really couple of strong examples of this occurring with, our Airswift employees and workers that are working with different clients. And where we've seen it be really effective is making sure that those onboarding programs are really comprehensive. So, they're identifying and filling the gaps in that industry specific knowledge, making sure that they're upskilling so those people can come across into those organisations. What has been really encouraging to see as well, actually, and we've really successful, is making sure that there's mentorship systems in place as well. So, pairing those new arrivals into that new sector with experienced employees, some of these things, like if you can get those right, you make sure you're fostering like a really strong environment of continuous learning, and hopefully supporting that smooth transition into that new organisation.
Jaden, you hit on a subject that I'm so passionate about when it comes to mentorship, because honestly, I think mentorship can either make or break your career if you align yourself with the right people. Unfortunately, we don't have time for any more questions. I want to thank you, Jaden. You're a fountain of information. You shared so many golden nuggets. I want to thank the audience for joining. Hope that the audience found it enlightening and informative. Like and subscribe for more content, and share the content with anyone who might benefit. Also, we are going to have our last webinar on petrochemical, nuclear, and power. So stay tuned for when that date is going to come out. And a final thank you. Look forward to seeing you soon.